Hello and welcome viewers, I'm Pia and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump has hinted at the authorization for the CIA to conduct operations in Venezuela, marking a fresh escalation of hostilities between the United States and the Caribbean nation. Trump has also bragged about the US Navy's latest strikes on Venezuelan boats, stating that nobody wants to go near the waters. Israeli Defense Minister Katz has warned of a resumption in the IDF's campaign in Gaza should Hamas fail to uphold their end of the peace treaty signed last week in Egypt. US President Donald Trump has threatened to move around games hosted by the United States in the upcoming 2026 FIFA World Cup, citing safety concerns amid his deployment of the National Guard to some of USA's biggest cities. Democratic rules. Peruvian police have used tear gas to disperse demonstrators trying to reach Congress in the first major protest against interim President Jose Herry, just days after he took office following an abrupt change of government. US President Donald Trump has claimed that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi promised him that India will stop buying Russian oil. Meanwhile, global oil prices have surged 1% as a result. Meanwhile, reacting to the claims, India's External Affairs Ministry has stated that Indian consumers' interest is their priority. South Korea has issued a code-black travel ban for parts of Cambodia on Wednesday and dispatched a team of high-level officials to help nationals lured into working in scam compounds and secure the release of those held against their will. Now, this ban follows the death of a student after alleged torture by a criminal gang. All right, viewers, those are the headlines. Our top focus: Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski has now spoken out in support for Ukraine, stating that Western allies must rally behind Ukraine to help them strike back against Russian assets. The Polish Foreign Minister has also warned that Europe must be prepared for Russia to strike deep into the region, calling it irresponsible to not build defenses such as a drone wall on its eastern flank. Listen in to what he has to say.
Need to help Ukraine cope with this. They need generators, they need spare parts for their grid, for their generating, for the electricity plant. And secondly, they desperately need anti-aircraft assets. They need short-term, short-range, medium-range, the full spectrum. And we should also think of consequences for Putin. If he is hitting Ukrainian civilian targets, we should help Ukraine hit back at his military targets.
Meanwhile, Ukraine has claimed to have downed nearly 300 drones and 37 missiles overnight after an attack from Russia had taken place. This marks the latest round of the border aggression in this war. Joining us on the broadcast is Alison Mutler, former Associated Press Bureau Chief in Romania. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Interesting statement coming in from the Polish Foreign Minister, who has stated that it's necessary to build defenses, including a drone wall on its eastern flank. Up until now, the response that we've seen from NATO nations, despite Operation Eastern Sentry, has been very calibrated, very measured. They've not yet toed the line or engaged with Russia directly. Are they trying to avoid a hot war, and how long can this continue?
I don't think either Russia or NATO countries want a hot war. They don't want to escalate the conflict. But I think NATO and the EU are trying to send a strong message to Russia that they will not be bullied. They will not accept drone incursions or hostile aircraft over their territory, because that seems to be the only language at the Kremlin that Vladimir Putin and his government understand is a stern, strong and firm reaction. So far, it seems to me that the response has been, as you said, not very calibrated. Planes have been used. It's not been very coordinated. And I think the Polish Foreign Minister, who was in Britain yesterday, who is a stern critic of Vladimir Putin, is trying to make sure that the Kremlin understands that NATO members will not accept any attacks on or any violations of its territory, because they know that's the only language that the Kremlin understands is a tough response.
And speaking of a tough response, we're seeing European nations, particularly France in the recent past, it has intercepted a ship that it claims was a part of Russia's shadow fleet transporting oil across the world. Could we then expect other European nations to follow suit, and the thrust of European pressure on Russia then building in the Baltic?
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, while I don't see either side wanting to escalate the war to a hot war, I do see that the conflict has broadened and has become more intense and more aggressive. And it's clear that if Russia does send its submarines, it does send its ships, it does send planes, it does do cyber attacks, then European nations, NATO nations, EU nations do have to respond very firmly, because they have to match the level of attack. And that's what France is doing, and the UK too, I would expect it to do. Germany itself has come out and said we are no longer at peace. The German Chancellor Merz said we are no longer at peace with Russia. So the war, the conflict in Ukraine has escalated and it has broadened, but we're not at a stage of a hot war at the moment.
Indeed, and we're expecting a very crucial meeting in Washington later this week between Donald Trump and Zelensky. Zelensky will also be meeting leaders of defense and tech firms in the United States. He is most likely going to put forward the case for Ukraine gaining access to Tomahawks. Do you think Trump will follow through with this deal?
Trump has been somewhat unpredictable over Ukraine, but he does seem to have changed his tune in recent weeks. He has toughened up his stance. He can see that Putin is making, quite frankly, a mockery of him. So it is possible, but behind the scenes there must be all kinds of talks and negotiations going on. And maybe there are back channel talks between the US and Russia, because obviously Donald Trump signing off on giving Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine would be another escalation. Of course, Ukraine says they will use it for military targets, but it would be an escalation of the war. And I'm not sure what will happen, but it is possible we will see in the coming days what will be decided.
Indeed. And, we've seen Putin talk tough with regards to the possibility of the US providing Tomahawks to Ukraine. Do you think he'll follow that up with action as well and further escalate this war?
What Putin says and what Putin does are two different things. I remember at the beginning of this conflict covering it from Bucharest and Putin talking about the nuclear threat, and I was talking to diplomats about that, and that was just bravado, showing off. So obviously Russia is worried domestically. You saw there was a protest in St. Petersburg yesterday. They are worried domestically about the effects of this war, because if it begins to affect Russia, I mean, it's already affecting their oil supplies and prices have gone up. If it begins to affect Russia too much, then Putin administration is in danger, and that's what he doesn't want. So Putin is worried about United States providing Ukraine with Tomahawks. But what Putin says and what Putin does, as I said just now, are two different things. But Russia definitely is very worried about this development.
All right, ma'am, with that, I would like to thank you for taking our time, sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting further east to developments coming in. US President Donald Trump is now expected to visit South Korea on the 29th of October for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum Summit. Trump is expected to make a two-day trip where he is also expected to hold talks with South Korean President Myung. Now, according to US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Trump is also scheduled to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping, who is set to arrive in South Korea on the 30th of October. This, of course, comes as Trump says that the United States is embroiled in a trade war with China, and that the imposition of restrictions on rare earth minerals is a threat to US's national security. Meanwhile, the United States has imposed high tariffs on China, 100% over and above the 30% that already exist. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Sanjay Kumar. We'll come to him very, very shortly. But to give you viewers a little more context of what exactly is transpiring between the United States and Russia, we're seeing a clear case of the Trump administration's protectionist policies in full swing. Donald Trump once again firing salvos at China, this time by introducing a 100% tariff, which will be effective from the 1st of November. Talks have taken place earlier in Madrid, where the TikTok divestment deal was agreed upon. But rare earths still remain a sticking point. Now, why they're crucial is because rare earth minerals are used in manufacturing technological items. US, of course, being home to many tech titans and a lot of defense equipment as well, which makes the matter very sensitive. And therefore, Donald Trump has taken recourse to imposing these very steep tariffs. China has not taken to it very well. China has earlier accused the United States of unilaterally wielding tariffs as a weapon to impose its own will. It's also taken veiled jibes at multilateral forums, claiming that the Trump administration and the United States at large is engaging in reckless bullying as well. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Sanjay Kumar. He's a journalist at the Korea Herald, joining us from Seoul. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. High-profile Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit going to take place later this month. We're expecting Donald Trump to meet Lee Myung, as well as a bilateral meeting between Trump and Xi Jinping, which is still on the cards despite the tensions. How is South Korea viewing the larger trade war between China and the US, and what are South Korea's concerns?
Well, this afternoon, South Korean government, the presidential office has confirmed the visit of President Trump, who is going to be here from 29 to 30. So it would be a one-day visit of Trump. And they have also confirmed that there will be a US-Korea summit on the sidelines of APEC. And if time permits, it is expected that Trump may attempt the business leaders meeting, which is proposed on 31st. But that is still not final. So one day is final. So from South Korea perspective, they are seeing this US-China trade not as a challenge, but as an opportunity, because Korea-US trade discussions are already in progress. They have shown confidence that they have reached some agreement, which is a good news for South Korean companies until today. But as you know, like Trump is so unpredictable that he may ask some like additional demands, and that is why South Korean government is very closely watching, and the pressures are also mounting among the political circles here to discuss many issues, underlying issues such as the visa issues. Recently, there was a issue of a detention in Georgia. So the mood here is like very positive, but they want to hold many consultations on various bilateral policies.
Indeed. So requesting you to stay on with us as we're shifting focus to more developments coming in. Russian Ambassador to India, Denis Alipov, has emphasized that India's energy cooperation with Moscow remains aligned with its national interests. Speaking on the matter, Ambassador Alipov has stated that India's government always acts with the nation's best interests in mind. Listen in.
This is the question to the Indian government. So, Indian government is, as I said, is acting having in mind the interests, the national interests of this country in the first place. And our cooperation in energy is very much in tune with those interests.
This statement comes after US President Donald Trump earlier claimed that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi assured him that India would cease importing oil from Russia. Following Trump's claims, global oil prices surged 1%. Meanwhile, India's External Affairs Ministry has responded, emphasizing that India is a significant importer of oil and gas, and it has been India's consistent priority to safeguard the interests of the Indian consumer in a volatile energy scenario. India's import policies are guided entirely by this objective in order to ensure stable energy prices and secure supplies, which are the twin goals of India's energy policy. This includes broad basing energy sourcing and diversifying as appropriate to meet market conditions. India's Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal has added that where the United States is concerned, India has for many years sought to expand its energy procurement and has steadily progressed in this direction in the last decade. The current administration has shown interest in deepening energy cooperation with India, and that discussions are ongoing. Shifting focus to more updates coming in, South Korea has sent a task force to Cambodia to help its citizens trapped in scam compounds and to secure the release of those held against their will. Now, the team, led by Vice Foreign Minister Kim Jina, arrived in Phnom Penh on the 15th of October in order to address the issue. More than 1,000 South Koreans are among about 200,000 people from various countries involved in these scams, according to National Security Advisor Wee Sung Lak. Now, South Korea's intelligence agency is also involved in unearthing what is going on. The United Nations says that these scam centers have emerged since the COVID-19 pandemic and generate billions for criminal networks by targeting victims worldwide through phone and online scams in particular. This follows the death of a South Korean student who was lured with promises of high pay and allegedly tortured to death. South Korea has issued a code black travel ban for parts of Cambodia, including Poipet and Kampot, urging citizens to leave due to rising detention and fraudulent employment cases. Still with us on the broadcast is Dr. Sanjay Kumar, journalist at the Korea Herald. We're seeing Vice Foreign Minister Kim Jina has arrived in Phnom Penh to address this particular issue. What's the situation like in Cambodia for South Korean nationals who've been targeted? Because I remember seeing that the statistic of South Korean nationals in particular being targeted by these scam groups, it's increased over the last couple of years ever since the pandemic.
Yes, Pia, it has been very serious since last few years, and it is becoming a political issue as well here, that why the former government here was not acting very strongly on this. But this time, President Lee has pulled his socks up and he is very strongly dealing with the matter. And the Korean delegation, led by the minister as well as the police agency from Korea, they are trying to meet the Cambodian Prime Minister also. And they are trying to establish one Korean desk inside the Cambodian police agency in the region, especially in the region, the port region, where one Korean student recently died, and that is why, you know, pressures and the backlash is mounting here among the public sentiment. And let me tell you that Korean desk means that, within the Cambodian police agency, if there is a Korean desk, they can separately handle such issues of reportings, because earlier this looks that it was not being dealt on swiftly, very swiftly by the embassy in Cambodia. When I say embassy, it's like Korean embassy in Cambodia. And that is why Korean government doesn't want to miss this chance to establish that Korean desk. It should be noted that, in Thailand, Philippines and Vietnam, already Korean desk is operating. These three countries in ASEAN has a huge number of Korean tourists as well as Korean diaspora there. And Cambodia in recent years had been really being a torture place for many Koreans, because they were, as you mentioned correctly, that they had been lured for these jobs, and even voice phishing scams are also there. Recently at the Cambodia and Vietnam border, one woman also was found dead. She was a Korean. So they are also trying to see some links. And when coming to the points that you have made in terms of data, already the Foreign Ministry of South Korea has received almost 330 reports, and 18 people have been, cases had been still like open and no action, or we can say like no conclusion has been made. But the numbers looks very high, and that is why South Korea is not ready to accept such reluctance from Cambodia, and that is why it is going to be very tough for the Cambodian authorities also this time.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for sharing more information with us. We will continue to track this very delicate development. Meanwhile, we're shifting focus to more news coming in from Southeast Asia. Tensions between Thailand and Cambodia escalated following a landmine incident on the 16th of July when Thai's 2nd Lieutenant Barmi Sricha's patrol team was struck by an explosion along their shared border. The blast severely injured a soldier, sparking 5 days of hostilities before a U.S. brokered ceasefire took effect. The mine was suspected to be a Soviet-era PMN-2, a type of anti-personnel device banned under international law. Thailand accused Cambodia of laying the mines, but Cambodia has denied the allegations, attributing the incident to older ordnance left over from past conflicts. Now, despite demining efforts, including a $1 billion initiative over the past 30 years, mines continue to plague the region. A UN investigation has been now called to determine the source of the mines in itself. All right, viewers, that's all the time we have for now. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.